Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Breonna was shot 8 times by the Louisville police. Say her name, Breonna Taylor, shot 8 times and killed in her home by the Louisville police. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Ask for justice now. Demand justice now. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. Good afternoon. I'm Tobeka Green, and I have the pleasure and privilege of serving as the National Black Child Development Institute's president and CEO. I welcome you to day 4 of National Black Child Development Week. Annually, during the second week in May, the National Black Child Development Institute draws the nation's attention to the strengths of Black children and the inequities that persist in their ecosystem. Today, like the first 3 days, will be power-packed, action-packed, and lots of fun. We open today saying Breonna's name, because in the words of Dr. King, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We opened our national conference in Chicago, Illinois last year, our 49th annual conference, while we were trying to make sense of an 8-year-old being arrested, handcuffed, and processed by the local police because she had a tantrum. Today, we say Breonna Taylor's name, and we ask that this serves as a reminder that our work is critical. We must demand justice. We must fight for justice. The National Black Child Development Institute is celebrating 50 years of pursuing our mission to improve and advance the quality of life for Black children and families through education and advocacy. Today's conversation focuses on advocacy. Here to introduce our panel is NBCDI's Senior Director of Programs, Danielle Adamson.
Thank you, Tobeka. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the National Black Child Development Institute for a virtual panel discussion, Parents as Advocates, Supporting Children with Different Abilities. After our 45-minute panel discussion, we will dedicate the last 15 minutes to Q&A from our audience. As a housekeeping reminder, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to type your questions for our moderator and panelists. This panel discussion will be moderated by Kenneth Thomas, also known as Kenny Clutch, the Dancing Dad. Kenny Clutch, professional street dancer and choreographer, is becoming one of today's most influential and impactful speakers. A husband and father of 4, Kenny and his wife Josie have defied adversity. Raising their youngest son, Christian, who was born with Down syndrome and diagnosed with leukemia just 14 months into his life, the family defeated cancer in a shocking 149 days as Kenny danced by his son's bedside every day in the hospital and inspired the world at the same time through social media. Kenny has been seen spreading his inspirational message on various national platforms, including The Steve Harvey Show, Good Morning America, Inside Edition, and more. His viral inspirational videos have received likes from high-profile celebrities such as Ciara, Janet Jackson, Sway, Morris Chestnut, Tyrese, and D.L. Hughley. Kenny's mission is to now impact the world in a positive way, helping others look at their challenges not as failures, but rather as opportunities to win by teaching his method of when we change the mind, we change the game. Please welcome Mr. Kenny Clutch.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Danielle, for that glorious introduction. first and foremost, I would like to, give all honor and glory to God, and thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for this opportunity to moderate today's discussion. I would like to start off by introducing our panelists for today. We have Miss Angela F. Williams, President and CEO of Easter Seals. We also have Miss Kenya Martinez, Education Advocate, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund. And we have Ronnie Sidney II, award-winning author, professional speaker, consultant, entrepreneur, and licensed therapist. Thank you guys for coming out for today. Thank you for being a part of this amazing event. And let's serve the people today. Are we ready to start? Yes, thumbs up if we're ready to start. Let's get it going. I'm going to start off with starting with Miss Angela Williams. Pleasure to meet you face to face now.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, as President and CEO of Easter Seals, you're providing programs designed to help children learn basic functions while mastering skills needed to develop and thrive. Easter Seals is breaking down barriers to ensure the inclusion of all children through accessibility. How can families ensure their children with special needs have access to high quality education, especially during COVID-19?
Thanks, Kenny, for that question. It's a great question. And I just want to say thank you to you and shout out to all of our panelists and, of course, the organizers of today's event. Wonderful opportunity. And I'm just so pleased to be here with all of you. But Kenny, in reference to your question, one of the things that I think is so important, and it spans across everything, but I will just say this: you have to know your rights. It starts there. And when you know your rights, then knowledge is power. And in particular, when it comes to special needs children, we have a law, and it's the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That is the law that sets the standard that enables equal access to education for kids with special needs. One of the things that's so important, though, and in particular for our community, it starts with getting an assessment. What the law says is once you have an assessment, and it starts as early as from birth all the way through age 21, a qualified assessment then triggers a lot of different benefits for children. But getting the evaluation, that's one of the things that Easter Seals does. And I just want to, and I'll probably say this, Kitty, not as an advertisement, but just to let people know where resources are available by going on easterseals.com, our website, because we have a number of different resources, and that will, again, unpack some of the things that I want to share with you. But starting with getting the evaluation, and even if a parent can't leave the home right now, or because schools are closed, there are tools and resources. For example, on our website, we have an assessment tool called Make the First Five Count. And on that tool, it's a questionnaire, and you can answer questions about your child. And the results will be given to us. We'll send you back an email within about 24 hours that says if there are some developmental red flags that as a parent you need to know. Again, going back to not only knowing your rights, but knowledge is power. Amen. The second thing that I would say is that the IDEA, the law, says that once a child has been qualified or diagnosed with a special need, then they are entitled to certain benefits.
Right.
And especially with schools, the benefits are coming up with a plan, an individualized learning plan for that child. I encourage parents, stay in connection with your schools, with the teachers. Don't let the school district off the hook. Don't let the teachers off the hook. Now, we do have to show grace, because teachers and school districts weren't necessarily equipped to start teaching from a virtual space. But there are tools, there's the law, and we need to make sure that relationships are strong, communication is strong, and that resources are available. So Kenny, I could go on, and I don't want to take up all of the time, but I'll just stop there to say, parents, educators, We know what we need to do. We need to work together. We need to communicate. We need to be in relationship. And obviously, flexibility is key.
Amen. Yes, yes. I believe it all starts with us. It starts with the inside. It starts at home, and then it can trickle out, from there. I want to jump to Kenya. Kenya, as a mother and a sister, you have served as an amazing advocate for your children, your adult sibling, and other people with disabilities. What experiences and skills have helped you become an effective parent advocate, and what advice will you have for others who want to set off in a similar direction?
Um, I would say the best skill anyone can have is a communication skill, not just the communication of speaking, but listening. When you are interested in becoming an advocate, you have to make sure you have a good listening ear. And you also have to have a willingness to learn. You're going to place yourself in different environments where there are people from different backgrounds who have PhDs and law degrees, and they know information that you don't necessarily know or understand. So you have to have a willingness to learn and ask questions. If you don't know what certain things mean, just ask until you can understand it, till you come to a place where you understand actually what is going on. So that's the biggest skill I feel that a parent advocate can have, is just the willingness to learn, the willingness to ask questions, and just to communicate and listen.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I believe, like, because I know when I was growing up as a child, there were teachers that probably didn't understand me. I was a quiet kid. I may not have asked the right questions, but at the same time, they didn't take the time necessarily to actually listen or to find out what was going on with me in my learning. In the third and fourth grade. I want to jump to Ronnie for a second here. What are some common misconceptions people have about children with different abilities? How can we combat these misconceptions and advocate more effectively as parents and caregivers?
That's a great question. I would say that probably the biggest thing is that kids with disabilities are lazy. I hear that misconception all the time. I think that, kids with disabilities, they put a tremendous amount of energy and a tremendous amount of effort into their work. Sometimes the payoffs aren't always great. And I think that does diminish sometimes the amount of effort that you put in. But, the kids aren't lazy. I think finding different ways for them to show their intelligence is a great way to start to build some confidence. With me, I wasn't a person that could put things on paper because of my handwriting, and with ADHD, sometimes I was a little disorganized. But if you put me with a team and it was more of a project-based learning activity, then I would do well. I would also say another thing is that kids who are diagnosed with disabilities aren't smart. I think 3 or 4 years ago, I first heard about this thing called twice exceptional, or 2E. And there's a number of kids who have disabilities who are also gifted. And I think sometimes the disability sort of creates this shadow over the strengths. So I always encourage teachers to be strengths-based, not deficits-based, because for me, I always knew everything that I did wrong, but it was hard, teachers, and even sometimes for myself, to identify the things I did right. So I think just having a more of a strengths-based model is a way to support kids with disabilities, because everybody wants to know that they're good at something. But if you have a child who doesn't believe they're good at anything, that they can't do anything, then you're going to get a kid who's unmotivated and uninterested in the educational process.
Right. Yeah. I know that my learning growing up, I had a tutor, and he found out that I was so interested in sports. Like, I had, reading issues when I was growing up. So what he did was he would get the newspaper, and we would read the sports section, because I was really into Michael Jordan. And in the 90s, Michael Jordan was obviously, really popular. So he went to my strength which was sports, and got me interested in learning how to read and develop my reading a lot faster. So I think that's an amazing point. Angela, I wanted to jump to you for a second. The NBCDI is committed to its mission to improve and advance the quality of life for Black children and families through education and advocacy. Similarly, Easter Seals is supporting advocacy efforts related to COVID-19 to ensure people with disabilities and their families receive the support they need. What are some practical ways parents and caregivers can advocate for their children and families during this pandemic to do the same?
Kenny, I just go back to what I said earlier, because I don't think we can underestimate relationships. And then the thing that Kenya said about having strong communication skills and also listening. And I think that communication is two-way street. It's not just the parent or the caregiver listening to what the teacher is saying, but the teacher also engaging and listening. And especially when you think about COVID-19, where the kids' whole routine has been completely disrupted. And we know that routine is extremely important for children, and especially special needs children. So now that they're disrupted, all kinds of different things are happening in the household. And so there needs to be the communication, the listening, the working together to figure out, how do we support the child? My biggest concern right now is the disruption, the learning loss, the potential for learning loss with special needs children. And that's something that I would just say, from an advocacy standpoint, we all need to be in on this and talking about it, and asking for school districts to be creative, thinking through what do we need to do over the summer months. But
Yes.
There is a new way of being and showing up. And so I don't know that we all individually have the solution, but collectively in communication and conversation, we can get there.
Amen. That is amazing point there. Like I'm going to have to dive in a little bit deeper with you on that one after we're done here. But I want to keep it moving. I want to make sure we get everybody's questions in. And I wanted to jump to Kenya. Kenya, as an education advocate for disability rights, education, and defense fund, you work to end disability discrimination that results from systematic barriers, negative attitudes, and exclusion. While discrimination affects all people with disabilities, people of color with disabilities experience far greater discrimination, marginalization, segregation, and exclusion than those who are white. How can Black families who have children with special needs work to effectively address systematic discrimination that comes from both ability and color?
Well, I'm going to have to let you know something. I really don't like the word special needs. I prefer, we call our children who learn differently children with disabilities or students with disabilities, because actually we're all special needs in some way, shape, or form. So that's first. But what I feel like what we haven't done specifically in our own community is accept the fact that there are individuals in our family who have disabilities to begin with, and that they're no different from anyone else. Ronnie brought up a really great point. I have a child that's twice exceptional. My child, when they were in the second grade, they were placed in special education classes, but my child had a wonderful teacher who was like, he's really smart. I think I'm gonna put him in front of a computer and see what happens. And we found out that my son had a learning disability called dysgraphia. So I think that in order for us to not have, we don't need to stigmatize having a disability to begin with. Okay, because like Ronnie already brought up, being twice exceptional, being gifted, because my son is also gifted. So got skipped a grade level, 2 grade levels in math, and had that really great teacher who who invested time into him to find out what was going on. So that's the first thing. We need to like not stigmatize individuals with disabilities in our own community first. And then after we do that, we can go out within other communities and in spaces and take up those spaces so that it's acceptable for everyone. Because if you look at most white communities, they accept individuals with disabilities. Here in California, we have the Lanterman Act that caters to individuals with disabilities, but it's very much broad. It doesn't necessarily include everyone or every diagnosis.
Right.
So I think the first thing we have to do is actually accept individuals with disabilities in our own community, those that learn differently. We need to stop calling people slow. It's not that they're slow, they just learn differently, period.
Yeah.
And once we start there and accept everyone, then I think it'll be better for everyone in the long run.
I absolutely agree with you. And amazing points. I mean, you know, even my son Christian, you know, the things that you see online from other people as well too. I've heard slow and things in that nature. The one thing I do want to say to parents, just to kind of add on just a little bit, when you deal with you know, other people and outside noise and people calling your child slow, you know, those comments are clearly ignorant, and they just don't know your situation fully. And I always say this: when we change the mind, we change the game. So from a mental standpoint, you have to be prepared that, you know, your child, you know, no matter what condition that they're in, they're special regardless. And you were given them for a reason. So I just wanted to encourage some parents out there that may hear that word slow. They're not slow, they're special. So, and we're all special in some way, shape, or form. That's why we're here. That's why we have purpose. But I wanted to jump to Ronnie really quick here. You have shared in the third grade, you were diagnosed with a learning disability, and it's been 7 years in special education. However, though, you are now an award-winning author, professional speaker, consultant, entrepreneur, and licensed therapist. Talk about it. What experience most significantly contributed to your academic and professional success, and why? Because I can't wait to hear this.
If I was to point back to probably one experience, it'll probably be in 8th grade. I was placed in a self-contained special education classroom, and I wasn't about that life. So, you know, I came home crying. My dad, he got me out of that special education, the self-contained classroom, and put me back in mainstream. But I ended up in sort of like a lower level math class, or a pre-algebra class. And in the class one day, the teacher got upset. You know, students, we were, you know, being disruptive. He was a first-year teacher, not culturally responsive. And he told the class, he said, none of you all are going to college. And that was like the first like aha moment, you know, of my whole academic career, because as long as I've been in school, I felt that teachers thought like that. Like I felt like the teachers thought that certain kids, you know, weren't going to amount to anything. But the thing that sort of shocked me was the fact that there were white children in the class too. So he not only, I wasn't even shocked that he told the black students that, but for him to say that to the white students, I was like, wow, he thinks to them that same way. So, you know, for me, it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, college, it must be something special there. It must be that ticket out. So it kind of made me sort of focus on, all right, I have these roadblocks, these impediments. I have this system that's it's almost like fighting upstream to get ahead, that I need to really buckle down and see exactly, you know, what is in my path, and find ways to eliminate those things so I can make it to college. So, you know, I think that really just gave me that drive. Like, I need to do this. Like, I need to accomplish this in order to be successful. So, you know, after high school, I graduated with a 1.8 GPA, didn't have any colleges knocking on my door. So I went to community college, transferred to a university, you know, gained my undergraduate degree, went back, you know, gained my master's. And it's ironic that I'm on a call with Ms. Williams, because I worked for Eastern Seals for 1.5 years. And I really enjoyed the experience. So just being able to have the experience I had in early childhood, it really gives me sort of a perspective to really help kids, especially kids with disabilities, to say that, hey, you know, just because you're going through this, it does not dictate, you know, who you'll be in the future.
There you go. There you go. I say this all the time. Don't look like what you've been through. Look like where you're going.
Absolutely.
Okay? I'm gonna say that one more time. Don't look like what you've been through. Look like where you are going. So if anybody is going through that right now, don't look like what you've been through. Look like where you're going. Miss Angela, I want to swing it back to you really quick here. NBCDI is hosting this panel discussion to ensure parents and caregivers are equipped to effectively advocate for their children with special needs as leaders of their families. What is your message for our participants who are representing schools in early childhood education programs? And how can they get involved and support families with children of all abilities?
That's a great question. And so there are a number of different ways. And just with my fellow panelists here, we're seeing how they've been engaged. And certainly, Kenny, with your own personal experience. I want to just say just a few quick things. One is that it all starts in the home. And one of the things that we have to educate our folks about is being willing to understand or see that there is potentially something different, and saying, let's go get our child tested. And I can just say from my own family's experience, I see the difference between one son saying, I'm going to take ownership, and with his wife saying, let's go get our child tested. We're seeing some behaviors that are unique and different. And then the niece and the nephew, where the nephew is like, I'm not, everything's okay. And there's a difference when, depending on how early you can intervene in a child's life. So, and when it comes to advocacy, about not labeling, but just saying, let's go get tested. Let's go figure out what's going on. And there may not be anything, but as long as we say as a people group that it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to say, I'm not sure, but I think I need some outside support and help. The second thing with respect to advocacy is really, I'm going back to what Kenya said, it's all about the communication, it's all about talking. And I've attended IEP sessions with kids that were in my Sunday school class, because I felt like there was no advocacy there. And sometimes you just have to push. And each of us has a role to play. It doesn't matter if they're your child or your neighbor's child or a friend's child. All of us have a role to play. All of us can work together and just support. And advocacy, there's nothing special about it. All advocacy is saying, I want to talk, I want to help, I want to communicate, I'm going to be there for you, I've got your back.
There it is. Miss Angela Williams laying it down. Thank you so much for that answer. So I want to swing it back to Kenya really quick. I mean, my son Christian, when we were in the hospital, I danced for him like every day when we were fighting cancer. They told my son that, told our family that he was going to be fighting cancer for about 300 days or more. And I just didn't believe that. And I believe that, me using my gift was going to help him and support him and mentally get him over that hump, which we ended up cutting, his recovery time in half. And Kenya, I wanted to ask you, as a parent advocate, what have you found to be the best resource to become more effective in supporting your children with disabilities?
Well, first of all, Kenny, I commend you for staying in the hospital with your son. I think that's wonderful. Just to let you know, I didn't share with my story. My child was born prematurely, and my child spent 5 months in the hospital. And that's how I got started on this journey of advocacy, because when your child is in the hospital and you see, especially if they're born prematurely, and you see all these tubes and things around them, you want to ask questions. You naturally want to protect them. You naturally want to ask questions. So the first time that I advocated was for my child in the hospital, asking questions of the doctors, the nurses, and then because they they came home with all these issues and equipment, of course I'm going to ask, therapists like Ronnie and, OT, occupational therapy, speech therapy, what's going on? What are you doing? How are you helping? How can I help? So, and from there, when my child got old enough and went into an early intervention program, or at the time, a special needs pre-K, again, asking the teachers what's going on, how I can help, what can I do? And then finally getting to that first step in first grade, second grade, it more became of my attitude changed, where it's like, I have to be there no matter what. So I would recommend to any parent advocate, any advocate caregiver watching, if you can, just show up in those places, become a parent, a room parent for your child's kindergarten class or first grade class. Go to PTA meetings. Here in the state of California, we have site boards. So the site board is responsible for the school and the funding that goes into that school site. But run to become a site board member.
Yeah.
Also, in the state of California, we have community advisory committees, which is a mandated group by the state of California. So I chair my community advisory committee because I want to know how money is being used in special education.
Right.
And to me, and I've said this, and if you know me on a personal level, I've said this over and over again to people, that I'm not worried about my children. My children will be fine because I naturally advocate for them. What I'm more concerned about is the children who I serve in my school district, because they're going to grow up and become the adults of tomorrow. And we got to make sure that they're adequately supported in their jobs, in their life, and that so they can live independently. So I would encourage every parent, if you can, just show up. You may not feel like you're adequate enough, you're not educated enough. Don't care about that. Just show up into those places, open up the door, break in, and make sure that your voice is heard and that you are there.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. I mean, for me, I know that when we were in the hospital with Christian, there were many times that we had to advocate for him. And one time in particular was during his fourth round of chemotherapy, and the protocol was 5 rounds. And I remember, to make a long story short, the doctors came in wanting to do a 6-round higher dose. And I wasn't there. My wife was in the room. I was working, and she calls me and she's like, they're talking about giving him a 6th round. I'm like, for what? Like, what does he need a 6th round for? Like, I don't understand. So I told her, ask questions, get as much information as possible. And they ended up telling us that out of the 109 children that they tested that have Down syndrome, with Christian's particular cancer, 9 of them relapsed. 100 of them lived. 108 of them lived. 101 of them lived. 8 of them unfortunately passed away. So for that reason, they wanted to give him an extra round of chemotherapy. And we weren't the only ones. There were many other families in America that were getting this message. It's basically like if you got a new car and they do a recall on all the cars because the steering wheel is messed up. So they sent a letter out to all these families saying, we need you guys to come back to give your child another round of chemotherapy. And first they said it was 15 times more the chemo that he was getting. And then when I went ahead to ask more questions and go a little bit deeper, they said they made a mistake and it was actually 30 times more the high dose when he was getting a mild dose of chemotherapy and doing fairly well. The cancer was pretty much already gone. We were just making sure that we went through the proper protocol. And then, we got threats from the doctor saying that, well, we could have took you to court and this, and I'm like, listen, like, I know my rights. I know what we were supposed to do, and we did everything right. We denied the 6th round. And most people go into fear with that. But, I just believe in a higher power at the end of the day, that he was already cured, he was already healed. So, to families that may go through that situation, do not be afraid to ask those questions. Ask them until you understand completely.
Yes.
When I understood
Yes.
completely, I said no. So, and we move forward from there. And my son right now is 17 months cancer free. So, we're doing well. I wanted to jump here to Ronnie really quick on this question. Ronnie, what is the one piece of practical advice you would give to parents and caregivers who want to ensure their children learn, grow, and succeed both in school and in life?
I would say the biggest advice is to teach your kids how to advocate for themselves. Help your kid find their voice. The one thing that I learned at an early age was how to advocate for myself, because when I was in special education, they would deny me of taking foreign language classes. I wasn't able to take some of the academic challenging classes that my friends were in. And I've always felt like I was just as smart as my friends, but they're taking college-bound classes. I'm taking classes that they give kids just to get them out of high school. So, I wanted to take those classes. So I advocated for myself until I was put into those classes.
Right.
And I think, sometimes with kids with disabilities, they don't really, when I go to schools and I ask, like, what do you guys want to do when you grow up? What are you good at? And most of them struggle answering that question. And it's because no one has ever empowered them and let them know, like, hey, I can speak up at this IEP meeting. I can decide which classes I want to take.
Right.
This one parent I talked to, she had a son. He wanted to take Spanish, and he had a disability, and she was in fear of him failing Spanish.
Right.
So she didn't want him to take it, but he had to keep pushing and advocating to take the class. He ended up getting an A. And I tell parents, what does your child have to lose if they're advocating to take a class or do a program or play a sport? What is the worst thing that can happen? As if you're a special needs kid or a kid with disability, you've dealt with failure, you've dealt with heartbreak, you've dealt with a lot of times where you couldn't achieve the success you wanted. So why prevent them from doing something they want to do just because you feel they may fail or you don't want them to get hurt again? I feel like if they're willing to take that risk, allow them to take it. Allow them to do something they want to do, something they enjoy. So give the keys to the child, allow them to dictate their academic career, because when I graduated high school, it was my name that was on a degree. And sometimes parents put kids in situations when they finish school, they can't go to college because they got a certain degree, or they're losing opportunities because they were put on a certain plan. So have that conversation with your kid, listen to their feedback, because essentially this is their life.
Right. Amen. Hey, really quick, Kenya, can you do me a favor and can you turn your video on and off? Your video controls are not responsive and you look frozen.
Okay.
Yeah. Just want to make sure we get you live there. So as she's doing that, amazing point there, Ronnie. Now I not to plug anything. I do a podcast called the Clutch Vision Podcast, every week, and I asked this question to all my guests, and I wanted to ask you guys the same question as well too. As families face the COVID-19 pandemic, what are some encouraging words you would share with families, particularly those with children with special needs, to encourage, motivate, and inspire them to continue to keep the faith and move forward during this time? This is an open question to anybody that would like to answer.
I'll jump in. Just saying.
One second, Angela. One second, Angela. Kenya, you may need to log off and log back in really quickly.
Not alone. And so even though you may feel alone,
you can go ahead, Angela. We got Kenya back on now. Here we go. But I think Angela is frozen now.
What was the question again?
The question was, as families face the COVID-19 pandemic, what are some encouraging words you would share with families, particularly those with children with special needs, to encourage, motivate, and inspire them to continue to keep the faith and move forward during this time?
I like I said before, I hate to sound like a broken record, but you really have to ask questions, be diligent in asking questions. um, during this particular time, if your child is receiving special education services, you need to find out about things like um, compensatory hours. You need to find out about extended school year. Um, and you need to find out about what services that you feel your child needs. An IEP, which is an individualized education plan, um, it needs to be individualized for your child specifically.
Right.
So I would say my encouraging words is to stay on top of everything that is going to happen in the next couple of months. We don't know what's going to happen, but you just can't give up. You just have to be diligent.
Right. Right. Awesome. Awesome. Anybody wants to jump in on that last question before we jump
Uh,
into the Q&A?
I would also say, this is a great time for supplemental education. I know, our kids go to school and they get, the ABCs and some of the basic education, but it's also a great time to start throwing in some Black history, sort of throwing in some cultural opportunities, some hands-on learning activities, and kind of step out of the traditional, way of learning and give kids some extracurricular opportunities to learn, whether it's, gardening, whether it's measuring food, even lunchtime can be a academic activity without making it an academic activity.
Right.
But I would say the main thing to parents is patience,
Yeah.
because parents, I have 3 kids, so I'm seeing what the teachers are seeing in the classroom,
Right.
every day. And parents, you may need, if you have another, if it's a husband and wife or partner or family, sometimes you might need to say, you get frustrated, just go back to your room, woosah, come back out, try it again. And it's okay to step away. And it's okay to say, hey, to your partner, can you help so-and-so with their homework today? I'm burnt out, or tag
Yeah.
team, take turns,
Yeah.
but just try to schedule it. If you get up at 4 o'clock, maybe you might be tired getting off work. Maybe you have them do their work at 7 or 8 o'clock, but just try to create a consistent schedule that's not gonna, create extra, anxiety for the child and also for yourself.
Yes, yes. I want to swing it back to Angela real quick before we jump into the Q&A. We got a couple minutes. You can go ahead and answer that question. I know you had jumped offline for a second.
Yes, I just want to say to everyone also, there are quite a few resources on our website, easterseals.com. We serve about 1.5 million people a year. We're across the country. So there are toolkits, there are videos, there are links to other resources. And so I would encourage everyone to just look on our website for additional information. And if an Easter Seals in your area does not provide necessarily all the services that your child needs, we have a call-in resource center where we can direct you to other resources in your area. So I just want to make sure folks know that there are tools available online.
There you go. There you go. Thank you guys so much. And just to add on, parents, I know for me, my wife, we have 4 kids, and we have a 16-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 6-year-old, and Christian is 3. So we have them from all different spectrums. And what number one helps us is when me getting up first thing in the morning and just having that time for myself to have that, get my mental right, because with 4 children, it can get kind of crazy. You all have different needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that parents, that you take time out, for yourselves. People that are married, if you're married, take that time out with each other first thing in the morning. I would personally suggest that, if you're getting up, get up early, get up 15, 20 minutes early. For me, I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I just have that time. I need at least an hour, or maybe even 90 minutes sometimes, just to, get my coffee, get my reading in, get that time, so that I'm preparing myself as the king of my home for when my kids wake up. It's time to clock in and ready to go, because either the boys are going to be bickering back and forth, or the baby needs this. And, my wife and I, we work from home as well too. So creating that schedule is so important. Our kids at 9:30, they start school. They go until 12:30 with their homeschooling. You have lunch, they go outside and play, then we start to prepare dinner. Right now, my kids are outside helping my wife with the yard. They're getting their home ec in right now. So, what I'm saying, it's certain things that we could, just things are different now. So don't be afraid to change things up and to switch the routine up for the benefit of your home and of your family. I want to get into some of these questions that we have coming in. This is coming from Willie Doris Frazier. Willie Doris says, how do you get parents to come on board when they are in denial? I believe Willie is a preschool teacher as well in California, working for Head Start. So that's open to anyone.
I would say, my mother was kind of the in denial parent, and my dad was kind of the something is wrong, we need some help, parent. And me as a former student with disabilities, I would say, listen to your child because the child knows that something is wrong. I talked to this one parent who they knew something was wrong and they were afraid to come to the child, and the child had seen a commercial about dyslexia. And when the parents finally had enough strength to come to the child already knew exactly what was going on. So, put the child first, talk with the child. If they're having challenges and some anxieties about school, then more than likely they would like to have some support with that. But I think sometimes as parents, we feel like we're the failure. We feel like it's our fault, and we have that guilt and that shame, which prevents us from helping our children. So sometimes we got to step out of our own way in order to be the best support for our children.
There we go. There we go. I have another question from Sandra Foster. Sandra says, I'm interested in advocating for students from a public policy perspective. However, I'm not a teacher or parent. What are some ways to get involved?
Well, to answer that question, my experience, like I've said before, is here in California. I live in California. So most community advisory committees are open to the public, meaning that you can attend them and you can actually become a member of most of them without being a parent, without being a teacher. So that's what I would recommend that she would do. So you can start there. If there's any community memberships, even if it's a HOA, just to start somewhere where you're placing yourself in, or a Head Start. At a Head Start, at Easter Seals. Yeah. I know that they have community meetings. Mm-hmm. The young lady can go there and start there.
There it is. There it is. And speaking of Easter Seals, Miss Williams, this question is going directly to you from Willie Frazier. Again, Willie Frazier asks, can you state again, how do we contact help while we are in the stay-at-home mandate?
So for Easter Seals and our resources, you can go online at easterseals.com. There's also a toll-free number on our website that you can call. We have a call center that will answer the phone and actually help you with our database, identify resources in your local community, and we do that by zip code. So that's the best way to access resources from us.
Awesome, awesome. I think that may be all for the Q&A. First and foremost, I want to just thank everybody that has come on the panel today. We got some really, really good gems today. Like, thank you all, the panelists. You guys provided so much information and everything for us. Really quickly, I would like each one of you, if you can, shout out where everyone can find you one more time, just so that we have that information logged in. So we'll start with Kenya, we'll go to Ronnie and Angela.
Yeah, hi. So I work for Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund. I'm an educational advocate. I actually serve 3 counties in the Bay Area, Alameda, Contra Costa, and San Joaquin. You can contact DREDF at our website, which is www.drdf.org. And if you look in our tab, you can find me there. You can email me. It's open to the public. But if you're calling to ask questions, we only serve those 3 areas. So in the Bay Area. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll go to Ronnie.
Yeah, so if you're on Facebook, you can search my name, Ronnie Sidney, LCSW. Twitter and Instagram is RONNIESIDNEYII, which is Ronnie Sidney II. And you could also go to my webpage, NelsonBeastEyes.com, to learn more about my books, speaking engagement opportunities. I have a free app for download. I have even a mixtape to go along with my book. So you'll find a ton of different resources there. Also, you can purchase my books on Amazon.com.
Awesome. And Angela?
Again, you can find me and the resources on easterseals.com, or you can also reach out via Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My handle is @CEO Angela Williams.
Awesome. And you guys can also find me at Kenny Clutch _ on Instagram is where I hang out the most, or on Facebook, Kenny Clutch, and KennyClutchSpeaks.com. You guys can find me there as well too. I'm going to swing it back to Miss Danielle. Yes. This was awesome. Danielle, take it away.
Yes, thank you so much, Kenny, and thank you to all of our panelists. You were absolutely amazing. It was such an insightful discussion with so many nuggets of wisdom. So thank you so much, Angela, Kenya, Ronnie, and Kenny. You were all so amazing. There was actually a couple of questions that did come in, but they were actually entered in our chat box instead. So I wanted to make sure that we got all of those questions in the last few minutes. Linda asked, what if my child has never been tested and he's in private school? The private school doesn't do testing, and I've been getting the runaround. What should she do as a parent?
So unfortunately, private schools are not covered under IDEA, so which Miss Angela talked about earlier, which is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So but private schools usually aren't covered because it's another directive.
Got you. Are there any rights that the parent has, though, to do maybe even independent testing?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay.
And I would also just, again, advise that parent to go to our website, type in their zip code, and see who's available. Easter Seals does testing, but if we're not near this family, then we can also refer to other resources in the area.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again, everyone. You were absolutely amazing. And participants, thank you for joining the National Black Child Development.
That is true. Yes. I just read one of the messages that is true. She can't call her public school and go through child fine. Yeah, thanks for the reminder.
Yes, and we've gotten a lot of different comments in the chat box about how informative and insightful this conversation has been, for sure. But thank you again to Kenny, Kenya, Angela, and Ronnie. You were all absolutely amazing, and this was an incredible discussion that would not have been possible without all of your diverse voices. So again, participants, thank you again for joining the National Black Child Development Institute's virtual panel discussion, Parents as Advocates Supporting Children with Different Abilities. Our next session, The Black Economy, Part 2, yes, Part 2, Gaining Financial Health in Black Communities Beyond COVID-19, the Role of Black Small Businesses, will start momentarily at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please stay tuned. And until then, I hope that you take care and stay well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.